What if the Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of art, but a rebirth of hidden knowledge? What if the greatest painters in history were not just artists, but messengers? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, masters of form and light, but also guardians of secrets. We've been taught to admire their beauty, the soft brushwork, the human anatomy, the divine proportions. But what we weren't told is that these works carry silent codes, symbols rooted in Hermeticism, geometry whispering sacred truths, figures arranged with impossible precision as if the paintings themselves are spiritual maps. Da Vinci's Last Supper may seem like a religious scene, but look closer. Why are there threes, triangles, and mirrored reflections everywhere? Why did Michelangelo paint a human brain into the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? What were they hiding? And why? This isn't just art, it's a language, and once you learn to read it, you'll never look at these masterpieces the same again. Art in the Renaissance wasn't just visual, it was metaphysical. The artists we now idolize weren't merely painters, but initiates. Many were part of secret circles, Hermetic philosophers, alchemists, students of the divine proportion. They didn't paint just for beauty, but for memory, for remembrance of forgotten truths. Hidden in their works were codes meant only for those with the eyes to see. Michelangelo sculpted more than marble. He sculpted the human soul. In the Sistine Chapel, the shape of the brain appears behind God's figure, a quiet claim that divinity originates in consciousness. Da Vinci's notebooks weren't doodles. They were encrypted blueprints of a universal language, sacred geometry, mirrored anatomy, and celestial harmonics. And Botticelli? He veiled pagan myth in Christian robes, smuggling forbidden ideas about feminine divinity into religious art. These weren't accidents. These were messages, planted beneath layers of beauty and myth, waiting for the right mind to awaken and decode. What happens when a painting speaks directly to your soul, without a single word? You feel it, the shiver in your spine, the strange familiarity, that haunting sense that you've seen this before, not with your eyes, but with something deeper. Renaissance art wasn't just meant to be admired, it was designed to resonate. Sacred geometry, when seen, doesn't just look beautiful. It feels right, like remembering a song you never learned. The spiral of a seashell, the golden ratio in a face, the symmetry of stars mirrored in a chapel ceiling. These were vibrations in visual form. Michelangelo's hidden brain stirs a recognition that the divine lives in consciousness. Da Vinci's mirrored sketches echo the duality of human nature. These messages aren't just symbols, they're frequency. And when your subconscious catches them, it wakes up, not instantly, but something shifts. You begin to question what else you've missed, what else was always in front of you, hiding in plain sight. Look closer, because the secrets hidden in art are the same truths hidden in you. Subscribe now and let's decode what was never meant to stay silent. But why hide it? Why embed truth in shadow? Because not all eyes are meant to see. These artists weren't just creators, they were code makers, threading ancient truths through brushstrokes visible only to those ready to notice. Michelangelo painted God inside a brain, not for decoration but as a rebellion. Da Vinci layered mirror writing not out of eccentricity, but to veil knowledge from those who'd misuse it. The church, the elite, the power structures, they weren't just commissioning beauty, they were controlling narrative. And when an image suggested that divinity could live within you, not in a cathedral, that was dangerous. It threatened hierarchy. It hinted that salvation wasn't bought or granted, but remembered. So the most powerful symbols were buried in plain sight, hidden not by absence, but by overfamiliarity, because the best way to hide the sacred is to make it ordinary. And now, centuries later, we're still walking past these paintings, blind to the keys they hold. We're taught to see art as decoration. But what if it was always revelation? The Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of beauty, it was a resurrection of suppressed memory. These paintings weren't passive, they were portals. When Botticelli painted The Birth of Venus, it wasn't just about myth, it was the divine feminine, reborn from chaos. When Da Vinci sketched man inside a circle and square, it wasn't geometry, it was a message that the body itself is sacred architecture. And when the Sistine Chapel ceiling depicts God reaching for Adam, look closer. God isn't on a throne. He's surrounded by a human brain. These weren't coincidences. These were encoded truths, whispers across centuries reminding us that heaven isn't above, it's within, that divinity isn't other, it's us. And maybe that's why the church funded these works, but feared their meaning. Because a population that sees itself as divine doesn't bow, it awakens. So what do we do with this hidden language of symbols? We remember it, we feel it. These artists weren't just creators, they were initiators. Their brushstrokes weren't aesthetic, they were alchemical. Each curve, color, and shadow was a vibration, designed to stir something ancient in us. Sacred geometry wasn't just design, it was a blueprint for the soul. The golden ratio mirrored the order of the cosmos, and within every canvas, the message whispered, "You are not separate. You are the pattern. You are the light in form." Healing begins when we stop looking at art as object and start feeling it as mirror, a reflection of our own divine architecture. When you stare into the eyes of a figure painted 500 years ago and feel something move, that is the real magic. The soul recognizes itself, not through belief, but through beauty, not through sermons, but through silence. The art is not just about what you see, it's what awakens when you stop seeing and start knowing. Take a moment, not to analyze, but to feel. What if these paintings weren't meant to be understood, but remembered? What if the figures, the geometry, the strange codes were all reflections of you, of the divine mind encoded in your own being? When Da Vinci painted the Last Supper, he hid mathematics. When Michelangelo sculpted David, he embedded anatomy and proportion. When Botticelli painted the birth of Venus, he wrapped mysticism in beauty. But they weren't showing off. They were passing messages. Quiet, hidden invitations to wake up. The brush became scripture. The canvas, a mirror. The real question isn't, what does this symbol mean? It's, what does it awaken in me? Don't just look at the art. Let it look back. Let it stir something that language can't touch. Because maybe your soul didn't come here to be told, but to recognize. And in that silent recognition, you don't just see the art. You remember what you are. You were never meant to just observe art. You were meant to decode it, not with the mind alone, but with memory. A memory older than thought. Because these paintings aren't relics of the past. They are keys for the present. Keys to awaken a kind of seeing that remembers the sacred in all things. The real masterpiece isn't on the canvas. It's what happens inside you when the image unlocks something long buried. Maybe that's why they hid it in plain sight, because the most powerful truths aren't shouted. They're whispered, waiting for the quiet minds to hear. So look again, not for technique or detail, but for a message meant only for you. A silent signal across time, from the artist to your soul, extended ending, attached. And if you do, if you dare to see beyond the canvas, you'll notice something terrifyingly beautiful. That the same geometry hidden in Da Vinci's sketches lives in the spirals of your DNA. That the same golden ratio carved in the Sistine Chapel echoes in the architecture of your thoughts. That maybe the greatest secret wasn't hidden in the art, but in who would recognize it. Because real power has never been in kings or popes or prophets. It's been sleeping in symbols, waiting for someone brave enough to ask, was this for them, or was it for me? And when that question lands, when it clicks, you're no longer a viewer. You become the decoder, the revealer, the living art. If the greatest artist risked everything to hide these secrets in plain sight, do you think they left them for the church or for you?